Showtime card, which featured Leo Santa Cruz and Carl Frampton, there was a fight for the WBC World Lightweight Championship between now former champion, Dejan Zlaticanin, and Mikey Garcia, coming off of a serious layoff, although he did have a recent comeback fight against Elio Rojas back in July of last year. But otherwise, had a long layoff and came back in very fine form, just outboxing Dejan Zlaticanin before finally just knocking him out. And when I say knocking him out, I mean knocking him out. Like, this is the reason why we call it a knockout, because he was knocked out of consciousness. He was out cold, and it was looking very scary there for a couple of minutes. He was down and he was completely unconscious for a couple of minutes there before they managed to get the oxygen tank to him. Get that brain reactivated with some more O2, and he managed to start getting back up on his own volition with a little bit of help. But it looked like he was answering the questions and everything that they wanted to answer. Of course, they're going to take him to the hospital and everything, get him checked out. I'm sure that's already been done, and hopefully the man is all right. But Mikey Garcia just looked absolutely impressive. I did not expect him to completely dominate and then dispatch of Zlaticanin as fast as he did. Zlaticanin, he's normally like a Mike Tyson-esque fighter, a very short guy for the lightweight division, only 5'4". Even Mikey Garcia at 5'6" isn't the tallest fighter in the lightweight division that we've seen, especially in recent years. But I mean, he definitely fought like the taller fighter, dictated distance, dictated the reach, dictated the timing, and just that timing along with his power is absolutely something to behold, something to be reckoned with. And Zlaticanin felt that power early, and he was pretty much he kind of ran out of ideas in order to close the distance. And in spite of that, he still fought on. But in the third round, it was pretty much all she wrote. Garcia came through with a brilliant combination, followed with the final punch being a nasty right hand that landed completely flush with Zlaticanin pretty much square up against the punch. It's almost like if you sidestep a heavy bag and then you just lean into as hard of a right crossing hook as you could muster, and that's pretty much what Garcia landed on Zlaticanin, just put him completely out. Zlaticanin, frankly, was lucky to land on his shoulder as opposed to his head, because if his head would have hit the canvas the way that, at the velocity that he went down, it probably could have been a lot uglier than it already was. But he managed to pretty much land on arm first, essentially, arm and shoulder first. His head didn't bounce off the canvas or anything, and then it finally just kind of laid him down flat on his back, and he was completely out of it, man. But fantastic win for Mikey Garcia. He didn't take especially long to get the job done, or even to fight a world champion level opponent in Zlaticanin and then get the job done. A fantastic win for him. He basically said after the fight, in the post-fight interview, that he wanted to fight any of the other champions and then potentially move up to 140. I definitely applaud that. I'd love to see him against any of the other champions. Robert Easter Jr. for the IBF. Jorge Linares has both the WBC Diamond Belt, I believe, as well as the WBA. Either of those fights would be fantastic. You got Peter Petrov about to fight Terry Flanagan coming up fairly soon, which I think is going to be a barn burner. I really can't wait for that fight. Petrov has definitely impressed me in the way that he's come back since his losses a few years back, particularly to Marcus Maidana. Of course, became the ESPN Boxino tournament champion, and he definitely deserves his title shot. He has one now at Terry Flanagan for the WBO. Ostensibly, I'd consider Flanagan the probably the weak link of the major champions, but you never know. He might show a little bit more against Petrov than I've seen of him before. But as for Garcia, I favor him over everybody at lightweight at the current moment. It's really hard for me not to. The man has fantastic skills, just great technique on everything that he throws, good footwork, good foot movement. And in spite of the fact that he is on the shorter side, a 5'6" guy, he's shorter than pretty much every other champion, except for I think Flanagan's about the same height as him. He is able to negate a lot of things just with pure timing, just pure excellent timing. He lands clean and he lands hard, and it's not just the fact that he throws really hard punches, but it's the fact that he catches you at that exact perfect timing in order to do maximal damage. And it's a big part of the reason why I favor him over everybody else. I think probably either Robert Easter Jr. or Denis Shafikov would probably give him the toughest fight at lightweight, considering their particular styles and the way that they match up against Garcia, especially with the long reach of Easter and his own, pretty good snap on his punches as well. And with Shavakov, with his overall speed, the fact that he has quick hands, quick feet, is able to get in and out really fast, and he has really good combinations as well. Linares, I think, really is probably more talented than Easter or Shavakov, especially from an athletic point of view in terms of just the speed and the variety of punches that he's able to rattle off in such short order. He's actually going to be defending his belt again fairly soon in a rematch against Anthony Crolla. But I expect him to win just like he won fairly handily in the first fight. But you never know. With Linares, he can sometimes show some issues in the ring in certain moments, whether it happens to be him getting winded or just the overall scar tissue and the fact that he cuts so easily. But I favor Garcia over every one of those guys. Over Crolla, over Linares, Easter, Shavakov, Flanagan, and Petrov. I think that he could potentially beat anybody and everybody there, as well as potentially even beat anybody and everybody at the 140-pound division. That they had talked about a Terence Crawford versus Mikey Garcia fight a few years ago. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing it happen in sometime in the near future, although I highly doubt that it would, considering the promotional entities involved. And I would imagine that Bob Arum wouldn't want to let one of his own fighters in Terence Crawford potentially lose to one of his former fighters. That would just, strike at his ego in a major way. That would be, very unfortunate for him. So I doubt that he'd even let it happen in the first place, even the possibility of it, regardless of who is favored in the fight. But to me, I think it's a fairly evenly matched fight, just generally speaking. Garcia, to me, is pretty much a transcendent talent. Really good. This is his third weight class title now. He had previously won at 126 and 130. He just did the damn thing at 135 and made Zlaticanin look like a nobody. He made a guy that's, was a pretty solid fighter, a really good champion, a guy that beat the hell out of Ricky Burns in a manner that no other fighter really had necessarily. Although you could, make an argument for Ray Beltran doing a similar number on Ricky Burns. Terence Crawford, of course, too, but Crawford wasn't quite the physical beatdown that Zlaticanin handed to him, as opposed to like kind of what Beltran did. With Crawford, it tended to be a bit more technical as opposed to physical, though he did rough him up physically a bit here and there as well. But Garcia just did a fantastic job. Really can't say much more than I already did. I think it's only a matter of time before he starts picking up some more belts, and then we see him on his way to 140 and maybe even at welterweight sometime in the future. He could potentially mix it up with some of the biggest names up there, especially since now some of those guys, the top names, are fighting each other finally. Garcia, Thurman, and then you got the potential for Spence finally getting a title shot against somebody. Hopefully the man gets his title shot. So that's pretty much all I got to say about Mikey Garcia with his fantastic victory over Dejan Zlaticanin. Hopefully Zlaticanin's okay. Mikey Garcia gets all the props for an explosive victory and one where he showed technical brilliance at that. And that's all I got to say about this one. So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.